Howdy folks, and welcome back to another episode of Tyria Talk. My name is Richie, and this show is all about the epicness that is the upcoming MMO Guild Wars 2. Today is episode 7, and we are going to be talking about the death of the Holy Trinity. That's right, the roles that are currently used in all other MMOs, tanking, healing, and damage dealing, are going to be shattered and broken up in Guild Wars 2. They are trying to stop that whole convention that we've all gotten used to, and we're going to discuss today why that is and what they're going to be doing. Are you ready? Because I am. So I guess I should get going. Okay, so what is the Holy Trinity exactly? Some people might not be totally familiar with those terms, so let me explain them briefly. Most MMO games, when you create a character these days, you will assume the role of a tank, a healer, or a damage dealer. Okay, tanking are the people that are like the meat shields. They stand and they soak all the damage from the big baddies. The healers are the ones that keep them alive and the other people alive. And the damage dealers are the ones that actually kill the monsters because they do the most damage. There's a problem that happens. I mean, obviously, it works very well having that kind of that dynamic. Like I said, a lot of games are using that kind of core. And sure, some games throw in a couple support roles. They might be the debuffers that actually do things to weaken the bad guys rather than outright kill them. Or you might be a buffer where you're just trying to help your own teammates succeed and boost their own powers. But for the most part, you fall into one of those three roles. Now, the issue that can come, and oftentimes does come into having those three roles, is you normally have a shortage of tanks and healers. And the reason why that is, it's not necessarily that tanking or healing is more challenging than doing damage. Because if you're going to be a really good damage dealer, always on top of your game, doing out the absolute max damage that you can do, while at the same time avoiding everything you should be avoiding and not pulling aggro off the tank, if you're going to do all that, that could be just as challenging as being a good healer or a good tank. The problem is there is a lot more responsibility, you might say, on a tank or a healer, because if you mess up, the degree of badness is at a higher level. So, for example, if the tank messes up and they forget to pick up a monster, or they lose, control of this monster, or they turn, a fire-breathing dragon the wrong way and it breathes on your teammates, usually what that does is it kills everybody and you wipe, and it's pretty obvious the tank did something stupid. If the healer, misclicks a heal or doesn't heal the person in time, or, and the tank dies, usually the boss or the monster will then run around and kill everybody else and therefore cause everyone to die. If the damage dealer messes up and maybe they attack too quickly and they pull the monster onto them so that they have aggro, they'll die usually, but it doesn't mean everyone's going to die. Or if they stand in a fire too long because they're dumb and they're, derping their way through, it kills them, but it doesn't kill everybody. And oftentimes the mistakes of the damage dealers will actually be covered up by a really good tank or a really good healer saving their ass. So what happens is, if people just want to kick back and play an MMO and they don't want to worry too much or get nervous, they will pick a damage dealing role because they're not going to kill everyone a lot of the time. And what this trend what the result of this is there's usually a shortage of tanks and healers. So oftentimes you'll have a group of maybe 4 people and you really want to run a dungeon or something, but you don't have a 5th person that's a tank, or you don't have a 5th person that's a healer. So you're basically just sitting around twiddling your thumbs. And maybe one of your friends, a 5th friend, will log on and you're like, yay, another friend. And then they're like, oh, but they don't have a healer. And so now you're stuck waiting. And Arenanet actually calls this waiting to have fun. And they don't want people to wait to have fun. They want you to actually have fun. So their solution to this is there's no when you pick your profession, that profession is not locked into a given role. for example, typically in a lot of games, the warrior, is a tanking role. But they can also, do some damage in melee range with a sword. They have to be close up. So you can kind of do either one of those roles, and you're kind of locked in. Well, in Guild Wars 2, sure, you can be a warrior and kind of go through the tanking motions, or you can do damage in melee range. But you can also switch your weapon set out to like a longbow, and then suddenly now you're a ranged DPS. So it's that kind of, and you can do that in combat. So it's kind of flexible, and it forces you to react to what's going on. Maybe there's a fight where the monster's going to create fire right around them, so no one can really stand too close. No problem. We're just going to go back and we're going to all equip our ranged weapons, and we're going to go to town. You can every profession can actually be effective doing so, which is a lot different than how a lot of games handle that. Now, the biggest thing that they're going for is they will not have any dedicated healing class in Guild Wars 2. And that's big news. Some people might not like that. Some people might love that. But I think that the way they're handling it is pretty ingenious. Every profession has one slot for a healing skill that they're going to put in there, and it's going to be some sort of healing spell that's going to keep themselves going. So everyone's got their own personal responsibility to manage their own life total and kind of survive by themselves. There's going to be a couple professions that have some supporting healing spells, but none of them are going to be targeted direct heal type stuff where you're just staring at a bunch of health bars and playing whack-a-mole, based on who's taking damage. Because that's a problem with a lot of MMOs too. The healers staring at these health bars and waiting for them to dip down, and then they're casting spells, and they're basically playing this little whack-a-mole mini-game, and they're not even paying attention to, what's happening or how cool those spells look or where everybody is, because they're just focused on these health bars over here. So these supporting professions in Guild Wars 2 are going to have AoE-type spells that actually create a visualization in-game. It'll be something like a healing pool or some sort of, effect, and it's going to be up to the other players to actually go and stand next to these things if they need healing. So there's not going to be any direct, healing going on like that. And I think by having that, it's going to make it more fun, to kind of like to be one of those supportive roles. You're not just staring at that thing, but also it's going to take everyone working together and kind of knowing what's going on and being like, oh, my health's dipping down. I've already used my healing skill. It's still on cooldown. I need to go run over to this pool. And there's just going to be this dynamic of people changing out and doing things. Now, on the tanking side, they're switching things up a little bit in terms of aggro is based. In a lot of games, how it works is aggro is established by like who's doing the most things to piss the monster off. And so if there's a damage dealer doing a ton of damage, the monster might try to go to them. But then the tanks have like taunts and different spells and abilities that they can do to actually get the monster to focus and stick to them. So the tank's main job is to keep the boss on them so that they can take the damage. Guild Wars 2, the aggro system is different. It's who is the closest person to the monster. That's who the monster is going to focus their fire on. So it's switching out is as simple as having one person step back and another person stepping forward. And what they want to do is create this dynamic where throughout the fight, maybe the warrior that's up there tanking the mob, he's out of all kinds of healing, his healing skills on cooldown. He needs to run out and go get a healing pool. So he runs out, and then maybe the elementalist runs up and adopts the earth elemental stance. I forget what it's called. I can't remember. So let's say the earth elemental set of skills, they swap into that, and they run up, and suddenly they're like protected by all these force fields and different kind of rock spells, and they actually hold the monster, and they're tanking for a while, and then the warrior goes up, and then they can switch back and forth. They want every class to be able to have some sort of defensive and healing kind of capability, so that they can run in and perform the tank role, they can run out, perform the damage role, they can do it from range, they can do it from melee, and I could just see how these encounters just become so much more dynamic because of this. And on top of that, all the professions have these cross-profession combinations that just work together. So, like the elementalist can pull up a wall of fire, and then the ranger can shoot arrows through the wall of fire, and then those arrows are inflamed. You can create poison clouds. in an area, and any people standing in the poison clouds will actually have their weapons imbued with poison on it. So things like that. Just I don't know. I could see the combat being extremely dynamic. I could see boss fights being in these dungeons just being super fun because you never know what's going to happen. Oh, that person. When you're in a raid in a different game or doing a dungeon in a different game, if a key member dies, that's basically it. There's no chance of you surviving. Like, okay, the tank's dead. All right, let's everybody die, and we'll come back and we'll try it again. I could see in this scenario that, all right, the tank went down. All right, I'm gonna run in and I'm gonna pick him up. I'm gonna tank for a little bit. Okay, you see if you can get him up, because remember, every class can go over to a downed person and try to revive them. Okay, we got him back into the fray. Boom. Okay, I'm gonna switch back to range. I could just see this. Just I don't know. I'm getting very excited here. I need to calm down. All right, I'm better. I'm really better. Okay, so I don't know. I like the fact that you're going to take away this Holy Trinity. I like the fact that healing is going to be more interesting and more passive and not that whack-a-mole minigame. I like that tanking can be done by basically anyone. And they've said that they have tested these dungeons with like 5 warriors. They sent 5 warriors into a dungeon, and they've been able to complete it. They've tested it with 5 elementalists and the same type of thing. Now, it's not to say that that's ideal. That's not to say it's going to be just as easy as any other combination. But the fact that you can do it is impressive. Like, take 5 wizards in a different MMO and try to get through a dungeon of an appropriate level and appropriate gear, and you're going to get slaughtered. You're going to get your, tails beat in. If you have tails. So anyway, that is going to wrap up another episode of Tyria Talk. Thank you so much for watching. As usual, if you have any questions or comments, please post them in the comments field below. And click on that little subscribe link. I think it's up here somewhere. Very important. You can get emails every time that I put out a new video, and that would be awesome if you keep coming back to watch them. Give me a little bit of a thumbs up. If you have any questions or want to hear my musings about the video game industry, please follow me on Twitter at Richie Procopio. And once again, thank you for watching. I'm okay.